Ms. Lundgren, can you hear us? Very good. Okay, back on the record in the people of the state of Michigan versus Beard and Fascinello, Haggard, Henry, Lundgren, and Maddock. I believe all the councils are present. Can I have your appearance, please?
Good afternoon, LaDonna Logan on behalf of the people.
Kayla Crano appearing on behalf of the people. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Mary Chartier on behalf of John Haggard, who's seated to my right.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Kurt E. Cross on behalf of Mr. Haggard, who's sitting to my right.
Good afternoon, Nicholas Tomberg, on behalf of Sean Meta.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. George Brown on behalf of Marianne Henry, who's to my right.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dwayne Sullivan on behalf of Michelle Unruh, who is appearing on Zoom via Zoom.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. George Danini appearing on behalf of Kathleen Burden, who is in the courtroom.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Joe Coger on behalf of Kathleen Burden.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Paul Stablin appearing on behalf and with Ms. Fascinello, who is seated behind me.
Okay, you can take your seats, and we were continuing with the prosecution witnesses. Who is your next witness?
And at this time, the people will call Mr. Troy Hudson.
Okay, and are you his counsel?
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. For the record, Brendan DeSiga on behalf of Mr. Troy Hudson.
Okay, you can either stay there or you can have a seat here.
I'll speak over there if I may.
Okay, Mr. Hudson, I just need you to stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. You can have a seat. Okay, please state your first and last name, spell both of them.
Troy Hudson, TROY HUDSON.
You can proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. In December of 2020, where did you work?
At the Michigan Republican Party.
Excuse
I'm
me,
going to
say
ask
that
you to
again.
keep your voice up.
Okay, sorry.
Could you repeat
Yeah,
your
at the
answer?
Michigan Republican Party.
And how long had you worked for the Michigan Republican Party?
Just short of 2 years.
And in December of 2020, what was your assignment? What was your title?
Was political director.
And what does a political director do?
Different things, different days. But largely I worked with the grassroots, volunteers. I worked with precinct delegates, local and state campaigns.
Now, December of 2020, you would agree that's following a national presidential election, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you recall any meetings or conversations about gathering the Republican slate of electors?
I remember that we were having a meeting.
Okay. Do you remember when those conversations, I guess, began?
No, I don't.
Do you remember who was involved in those conversations?
Specifically, no. I know that it would probably been myself and Laura Cox and then others.
Would these be meetings in person, by phone,
At
virtual?
this time, probably by phone, because we had a COVID outbreak in the office, so we didn't do a whole lot of work in the office.
So are you able to tell us where was this meeting supposed to take place?
At the Michigan Republican Party.
And where is that located?
Seymour Street, not far from here.
Is that in the city of Lansing?
Yeah.
And when was it supposed to take place?
I don't know a specific date.
Who was supposed to attend this meeting?
We'd invited the electors who were selected from their specific districts.
And so that would be all 16 for the Republican slate?
I think we invited all 16, correct?
Okay. Just remember to try and keep your voice
Yeah,
up.
sorry.
Your Honor, excuse me, Matt, I just have an objection. When there's a term like "we," I would ask that it be clarified as to who he's referring to. Thank you.
That's the same. Thank you.
Now, I don't remember the question I asked, but I believe it was,
We invited.
when you said we invited, could you be more specific as to who we?
I don't
is?
know who called all the electors. I can't recall, but Laura Cox asked the electors to come to the Michigan Republic.
Do you recall what the purpose was for this meeting?
It was to honor them for having been selected. It's a pretty rare thing to get that selection.
And were you present for the meeting of the electors?
Portions of it, yeah.
Now, when you say you were present for portions of it, were you there for when the meeting started?
Well, I guess, can I clarify which meeting are you talking about? I think that there were 2 meetings.
The first meeting.
Okay. I don't know if I was there when it started.
Okay. What time did you arrive at the Republican headquarters?
Early that morning.
And if I said the meeting was on December 14th, would you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
Okay. When you arrived at the Republican headquarters, was there anybody else there?
There could have been. I'm usually not the first person there.
Were there any Republican electors there?
I don't think anybody was there yet.
Did you do anything to prepare the location for the meeting?
Yes.
What did you do?
So we set up in the basement of the Republican Party. There's not a conference room, but kind of a larger gathering room. We set up some tables and chairs with like coffee and donuts, things like that.
Were you aware of what time the Republican slate of electors were supposed to appear for this meeting?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know anything about a document that was supposed to be presented during this meeting?
Yes.
Tell me about the document that you know
of. One that I know of was saying essentially if President Trump and Vice President Pence had won, the electors had met in Lansing on this day, and we would have supported.
Permission to approach, Your Honor? Yes. So I'm going to hand you what has been admitted as People's Exhibit 8. Would you take a look at that and let me know if you recognize that document?
This looks like the one I'm referring to without reading every word. Yeah.
So People's Exhibit 8 is the document that you just described to us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I asked you if you knew of any documents that would be circulated, I'll take that back.
Yes.
During the meeting, you said the document that I know of. Is there another document?
I later became aware that there was, yes.
Okay, but you were not aware of that on December 14th?
Not until later that evening.
Now, to your knowledge, were all 16 electors present at the meeting?
No.
Do you know which electors were not present at the meeting?
There were 2, Terry Lynn Land and I'm blanking on the young's name.
Anybody have an objection if I suggest that it is Gerald Wall?
Yes, Jerry Wall. Yeah.
Not you.
Yes, Jerry Wall.
No objection. No objection.
Okay. I think we can all stipulate that the other absent elector was Gerald Wall. I just want to make sure no council objected. Was there anyone present at this meeting other than the 14 Republican slate of electors?
Yes, 2 other folks came in there.
Did you know who those 2 people were?
One I had met before, and the other was Ken Thompson.
Okay. Now, other than those 16 people, was anyone else in attendance at this meeting?
There were other people who didn't work for the Michigan Republican Party, but rather the Trump campaign.
Okay. Now, were there people from the Michigan Republican Party?
Yes.
Who was there?
To the best of my knowledge, myself, Henrietta Toe, Mike Ambrosini, and Tony Zammit. I think that was it.
And did you know the people who were present at the meeting for the Trump campaign?
I only recall one of them, but I know that there were multiple other people there.
Okay, and who was the person that you do recall?
I remember Sean Flynn was there.
Now, were they just in the building or were they in the basement as part of the meeting?
I don't recall them being in the basement, but they may have been.
Okay. Now, at what point do you go into the basement?
Like I said, I was there to set up so early in terms of during the meeting.
Yes.
What you're asking. I was going back and forth because we had things going on upstairs and other people who had also shown up were trying to get in. I was assessing that situation and ensuring that they were not allowed in, and then going downstairs.
I'm gonna stop you there. Was there a restriction on attendance?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
So like I said, we recently had a number of employees have COVID that work there. So we restricted it to just the electors and then a couple of staff.
And do you remember who was trying to get in that you were keeping from entering the meeting or the building?
Their names, I don't know if I know all their names. I don't specifically remember.
Do you remember any of the names?
I know that Matt Maddock was there. He had shown up with his wife, Sean. And I know that there was others. There was a group of the camera.
And is it your testimony that Representative Maddock and the camera crew were denied entry?
Yes. Yeah, we did not want it.
Okay. Now, going back to the meeting that was held in the basement, do you recall if the meeting was in progress when you went into the basement, or were you there for the start of the meeting?
I don't think I was there for the start, so it's probably already in progress.
Okay, so when you go down to the basement and the meeting's in progress, what's happening at that point?
I mean, nothing specific. I think people are kind of just milling around. It's nothing like formal.
Is there a point when that changes?
Not where I was present, no.
And how often did you leave the basement?
I was going back and forth throughout.
Were you present in the basement when the meeting ended?
I may have been. I don't know.
Were you there when the Republican slate of electors left?
I did see them go upstairs, yes.
Okay. Now, let me backtrack. Now, you testified that Terry Lindland and Gerald Wall, who were nominees for elector, were not present, and there were two people who were not electors that were present, one that you recognized, one you did not, correct?
Correct.
Do you know how those people gained admittance into the meeting?
I mean, we as in someone can probably our staff would have let them in.
Okay. But if they're not electors and the admission is limited to electors, how did you know to let them in?
I mean, when we didn't invite them, we just allowed them in, I suppose. So they showed up and.
So you let random people in, but not Representative Maddock?
We let those two specific people.
And what was so special or significant about those two specific people?
I don't recall.
Was there
what was the point?
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there some information you were provided that they were needed for the meeting?
No.
Was this supposed to be a formal meeting?
No.
What was it supposed to be?
Celebration of their nominations as electors.
Was the attendance of all 16 Republican delegates required?
No.
Were replacements needed?
No.
One moment.
Whose coffee cup is that? We remove that off the ledge.
Oh,
You can put it behind you, but I just fear that Mr. Pasiga might jump up and say objection. And it's gonna-
It's off on the laptop. Do you know how long the meeting lasted?
I don't recall.
How did you know the meeting in the basement was over?
People were going upstairs.
And did something else happen upstairs?
I saw them enter the conference room, or at least some of the members enter the conference room upstairs.
Was that part of the meeting you were part of?
No.
Did you know what they were doing in the
No.
conference room?
No.
Did you go in there and look?
I did not.
What'd you do when you see the, now, when you say they were going to the conference room, just to keep the record clear, who's they?
The electors.
Okay. So what did you do when you see electors going into a conference room upstairs?
I called our chairman, Laura Cox, our counsel, Stu Sandler, and said, hey, there's something else going on. And they said, you're done. You don't need to pay for anything else. It's nothing that we're doing.
So something else was going on and you basically called, is it fair to say Laura Cox is your boss?
Yeah.
You called your boss and your boss said, we're not a part of that?
Correct.
Now, just to be clear, People's Exhibit 8, is this the only document that you are aware of on December 14, 2020?
Yes.
Is it your testimony that you learned about a document at a second document at a later date?
Yes.
And did somebody tell you about that document or did you see it?
I had since seen it in the news and been presented it, but I haven't.
But you have, is it fair to say you have no personal knowledge about that document?
No.
Okay. Earlier today, you were shown a series of photos. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And in some of those photos, did you recognize people?
Some, yeah.
Your Honor, may I approach? Sir, I'm gonna hand you what is marked as People's Proposed 15. Were you shown this series of photos?
I was.
Okay. Now, it's fair to say you don't recognize everybody in the photos, is that correct?
There's a lot of people in masks. Okay.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you to turn to the page that is labeled 15B.
Okay.
Do you recognize anyone in those photos?
I recognize Matt Maddock, Marion Sheridan, and Sean.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to return to 15C.
Okay. Yep.
And do you recognize anyone?
Matt Maddock and Marion Sheridan.
Do you recognize anyone in 15D?
No.
Now please proceed to E, 15E.
Okay.
Do you recognize anyone in 15E?
Sean Maddock.
I'm gonna ask you to turn to 15I. Do you recognize anyone in that photo?
Marion Sheridan and Ken Thompson.
In fact, I'm going to move to admit this with another witness, Your Honor. This is just for identification purposes. And I've handed you what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 17. And were you shown that series of photos earlier today?
Yep, I believe so.
And did you recognize some people on some of the pages?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to turn to 17D.
Okay.
And do you recognize anyone on 17D?
Matt Maddock, Sean Maddock, and Ken Thompson.
What has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 32D. Were you shown that photo earlier?
I was.
And do you recognize anyone in that photo?
Many people.
Can you name them?
Some of them, others, if you provided me the name, I could point to it, but I can name some of them.
Do you recognize where that photo was taken?
This is the upstairs conference room.
We need you to keep your voice up.
Yeah, upstairs conference room with the Michigan Republican Party.
Okay. And who do you recognize in that photo?
Kent Vanderwood, Maida Rodriguez, Stan Brott, John Haggard, Marion Sheridan, Marion Henry, Kathy Burden, Ken Thompson, Hank Choate, Sean Maddock, Rose Brook. I think that's Cliff Frost in the back.
And all the people you named were on the Republican slate for electoral candidates.
Yeah, I believe so.
People will pass this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hudson, my name is Mary Chartier. I've got some questions for you this afternoon. On the photo that you were just looking at, the one with the entire group of people, thank you. I'm going to take that. Do you see any paperwork in that photograph?
I do not.
Thank you. Now, you indicated earlier in your testimony that Laura Cox invited people, meaning the electors, to this meeting, correct?
Michigan Republican Party, I don't know that she personally did.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify with you. You have no knowledge that she personally invited anyone,
I don't think
correct?
that she did.
Okay. Did you invite anyone?
I don't believe that I did.
So you don't know, because you didn't invite anyone, what anyone was told when they were invited to this meeting?
No.
And your knowledge of the meeting was it was supposed to be ceremonial and a way to honor people for their service to the Republican Party. Is that accurate?
Correct.
You said you later became aware of a document that was different from what was Exhibit 8. How did you become aware of that?
I think news reports.
And that was in the evening, like later evening of the meeting?
I don't think I knew about it then, but later, yeah.
Okay, so the only document that you were aware of when you were at the Republican Party was Exhibit 8 that you were shown, correct?
Okay, give me just a moment. Ms. Lundgren? Ms. Lundgren? It should be something that looks like a little microphone. I sent you a request to unmute.
I'm sorry. I'm okay.
Can you hear me?
Wait, Carl, where's unmute?
I can't hear her.
What?
Okay, I can't hear you, but you need to get off the phone,
Thank you.
okay?
Yes.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you. And so your knowledge of that meeting was it was ceremonial to honor the electors, as well as for essentially the electors to indicate that if Donald Trump had won and Vice President Pence, then that's who they would support with their votes. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
You talked about the meeting or the day of the meeting, and you said you don't think you were the first person in the building.
Correct.
Correct? And you indicated that you thought that Tony Zammit, Henrietta Toe, and Mike Ambrosini, did you say that? You thought they were at the building?
I believe so, yep.
You also indicated that you believe that Sean Flynn was there.
Correct.
Now, was he part of the Republican Party or was he part of the Trump campaign group?
Part of the Trump.
Do you know if Mr. Flynn is a lawyer?
I believe he is, yes.
And Henrietta Toe, is she a lawyer?
No.
Tony Zammit?
No.
Mike Ambrosini?
Not that I'm aware.
Are you a lawyer?
I am not.
So we've got one lawyer, meaning Sean Flynn, in the building. Do you know were any other lawyers in the building?
I don't remember.
So you don't remember anyone else who was in the building from the Trump campaign?
I know that there were others there. Yeah, but I don't know that, I can't name any.
Sure. How many from the Trump campaign? Do you recall?
I don't.
Over 10, under 10?
Oh, under 10.
Under 10, you think under 5, over 5?
Probably around 5.
Around 5. So Sean Flynn and then probably around 5 other people. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then, so you've got 5 people from the Trump campaign, as well as Sean Flynn, who's a lawyer, got a few Republican staffers, and then you've got the Republican electors. Is that accurate?
Yes,
And then no one else you want in the building, or at least you've been instructed not to allow anyone else in the building.
the only other person in the building was Dean Burden, Kathy Burden's husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was in as well.
Yep.
Now, at the meeting, you said you don't really recall anything that happened in the basement.
Correct.
And then you weren't there where anyone was signing like a signature page or anything like that.
I was not.
And then you said when electors went up into the upstairs conference room, and that was the photograph that you were shown, you weren't, excuse me, you weren't in that conference room, correct?
Correct.
So you don't know what anyone was told at that.
I did not.
Now, in addition to Sean Flynn, do you recall seeing Ian Northen at all that day?
I've heard that name, but I couldn't pick him out of a crowd.
Okay, so you don't recall seeing him.
No.
Now, you indicated that you called Stu Sandler at some point when people went into the upstairs conference room.
I communicated with him, whether it was a phone call or a text, I don't remember, but yeah.
Who is Stu Sandler?
He's the general counsel for the Michigan Republican Party.
And he indicated that you didn't need to be a part of that meeting. Is that accurate?
Correct.
And you could go home.
Correct.
He didn't tell you call the police, there's a crime occurring, did he?
No, he did not.
And you didn't call the police to say, hey, I think there's a crime occurring,
No, I did not.
did you? And then later that night, when you heard a news report, you didn't call the police then, did you?
I did not.
Did Mr. Sandler call you and say, oh my gosh, Troy called the police, a crime just happened?
No, he did not.
Other than being in the building, is it fair to say that you really don't know what was occurring at that meeting? The meeting in the basement?
I know that they were gathering together and mingling.
Mingling,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So gathering together and mingling, beyond that, you don't know what was occurring at that meeting in the basement?
No.
And fair to say you don't know what was occurring upstairs when that photograph was taken?
Correct.
And fair to say in that photograph, you've got people smiling and staring at the camera?
Yes.
Thank you. One moment, please. Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Nicholas Somber, representing Sean Maddox. On December 14th, 2020, you were chief of staff.
No, I was the political rep.
And what were your duties?
Like I stated before, it changed day to day, but largely I helped with grassroots, state committee members, precinct delegates, and then state and local campaigns.
You worked directly under Laura Cox.
Correct. I mean, there was a chief of staff.
Who at that time had the authority to, well, let me ask you, you had the authority to allow or not allow people into the building?
On that day, yes.
Okay. Were you the only person with that? Who gave you that authority?
Laura Cox would have told me that we just had the electors come in.
Okay. And why did you just not allow Matt Maddox into the building?
Again, I didn't allow anyone that wasn't an elector outside of Dean Burden, who was ailing cancer at the time.
Why did you allow that person?
But he was ailing cancer at the time, and I had him sit in my office upstairs, isolated. He wasn't near anybody, so he wasn't participating in the event.
Is that a decision you could just make on your own, or did you need that?
I decided to make that decision.
Time were involved in a campaign against Sean Maddox,
Laura Cox was running against Sean Maddox.
and were you involved in Laura Cox's
I
campaign?
was helping her, yeah.
Would you agree that that was a contentious race at the time?
I think all races are contentious, right?
Oh, that one in particular.
Again, I think they're all races are contentious.
Can you clarify what the election was for?
It's for chair.
You gotta ask him. You can't
Oh,
give
I'm
me the
sorry, I thought you were
testimony.
asking me. What was that election for?
Michigan Republican Party chair. She was running as a co-chair. I mean, Sean Maddox.
Thank you.
Yep.
Who won that election?
Ron Weiser and Deshaun Maddox.
Were you able to keep your job?
I didn't, I wasn't gonna stay either way, so.
So you lost your position after that, after Michon and Ron won their
I
election.
did not stay at the Michigan Republican Party, correct?
You said that there was a lawyer from the Trump campaign present before any of the 16 electors got there.
I don't know when you arrived.
Was he there before you got there?
I don't recall.
Was he the only lawyer there?
I don't know.
Did he bring any of his own computer equipment?
I mean, I can assume he did. Usually we all bring our own computers.
Did he bring his own printer?
I don't know.
You, on direct, to talk about a document that said if Trump was found to have won Michigan, that this was the election. These were the slate of electors, correct? Do you know who prepared that document?
No. I do not.
Were cell phones requested to be taken before anybody entered the building?
We not before they entered the building, as they entered the building. Yes.
Okay. Who made that decision?
I don't remember exactly who made that decision.
But you were telling individuals that they were not allowed to bring their cell phones in.
Me and the other staff members, yes.
Okay, and who were those other staff members?
Anyone with the Trump campaign, and as identified, there were others there. So Tony Zammit, Henrietta Toe, Carl Berry was there, who's dating, and Mike Amberstein. So,
Is that typical for
it's not atypical.
what kind of meetings would these? Under what circumstances would cell phones be taken?
Well, for example, state committee meetings, we don't allow pressing. Particularly in the budget committee, there would be times when you would have cell phones not allowed. It's sensitive information. I've been to at least one presidential debate where you couldn't bring, you had to put your cell phone in the locker. I mean, I've been to multiple.
But this, it's your testimony that this was supposed to be a celebration,
Correct.
and it was Laura Cox who set up this meeting.
Yeah, Michigan Republican Party. Yes.
Why on this date, on December 14th?
As far as I know, that was the date that the electors meet.
So the date had significance.
I believe so.
Were you involved with calling all the electors to be there?
I don't believe I called.
You know Stuart Foster,
I do.
and who was he?
He at the time was one of my deputies in the Michigan Republican Party.
Is somebody who you would text with, have text message exchange?
Yeah.
Did you ever have Stuart Foster call or contact the electors?
I reasonably, he was in contact with a lot of those types of grassroots folks, yes.
And did you tell him to contact the electors to be there?
I don't recall.
And I forgot if I asked, but just bluntly, did you contact the electors?
I don't believe I called them.
You know who took that the picture?
I do not.
And specifically the one with everybody around the table?
Nope, I don't.
No further questions.
Thank you.
George Brown from Marion Henry. Just wanted to clarify. So you said, do you understand the electors met because they wanted to sign something in case Michigan did change and the votes for Michigan were going towards Donald Trump, right?
There was ongoing legal matters, so yeah.
And it's your understanding that December 14th, 2020, that date was specifically picked by the electors because it was required by statute.
I believe so.
No further questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hudson. My name is George Denny. I represent Kathy Bird. All right, so let's just, I want to just go over a few things because a little haphazard there. So you worked for the Michigan Republican Party for about 2 years?
Correct.
February of 2019 to February 2021?
That sounds right.
All right, and you were the political director, was your title?
Correct.
And you had a couple of subordinates, or I think you used the term deputies, and one was Stuart Foster?
Correct.
Okay, just give us, what was your working relationship?
Can you clarify that?
Just, how was he a good kind of subordinate? Did he do as he was asked? Those kinds of things?
Yes.
Competent?
Yes.
And then you mentioned Laura Cox as the chair.
Correct.
And you said there was a chief of staff in between you and her, right?
Correct, Mike Ambrosini.
Mike Ambrosini, and then Stu Sandler was MRP's legal counsel.
Correct.
Okay, so he advised Laura Cox and he advised the rest of the MRP folks, including you.
Correct.
Okay. And what was the importance of legal counsel? Did MRP utilize legal counsel often in these political matters?
Yes.
Common to get legal advice on things?
Yes.
It was Stu Sandler an integral part of the MRP in his role as counsel?
In his role as counsel, we used multiple attorneys. So you would have had any number of attorneys looking at various things.
Okay. Those are like outside counsel?
Correct.
So, but you kind of first step is Stu Sandler, but as things got more complicated, you would talk to outside counsel
It
as well.
depended on the issue, yeah.
Okay. All right, and you talked about the presidential election. Obviously, that's why we're here for 2020. Just briefly, what was your role leading up to Election Day?
Again, particularly, especially close up to the election, helping out state and local campaigns.
Okay, and did you have any involvement or role in the presidential campaign?
In the sense the presidential campaign encompasses all of them, yes. But not particularly.
Okay, and you just made a mention before, I believe, about there were ongoing legal matters going on, right?
Correct.
Were you aware of those?
Yes.
Were you involved in
No.
kind of staying in up to speed on what was going on?
Up to speed, sort of, but I mean, I'm not an attorney, so we're involved.
Okay, so bottom line, the election was declared for Joe Biden shortly after Election Day, which is November 3rd, 2020?
Correct.
Okay, but you're aware that there were allegations out there of various fraud, yes?
Yes.
And there were lawsuits that were filed?
Yes.
And there were lots of things that were out there in the public domain that were, whether they're true or not, calling into question the results of the election.
In various states, yeah.
Okay, and what was your function, given that you were the political director? Did you play any role in that for
No.
MRP? Okay, but Laura Cox would?
Good.
Okay. All right, and then you mentioned on, well, hold on. Okay, now you talked about becoming aware of this December 14, 2020 meeting of the Republican electors, right?
Correct.
How did, you don't recall how you became aware of that?
No.
Do you recall a phone call with you, Laura Cox, Tony Zammit, and Stu Sandler?
Can you clarify that?
Yes. Were you on a phone call with those
I'm
individuals?
on phone calls, I was on phone calls with those individuals often.
Okay,
So
You maybe give
that's-
them a date of the election phone call.
December 12th, 2020.
I could be,
Okay.
I don't.
Do you recall a phone call where they described the purpose of the December 14, 2020 meeting?
I do not.
Okay, so how is it that you became aware of that meeting?
I don't recall.
And you said you don't recall calling individual Republican electors in the lead up to December 14th.
I don't believe that I called that.
Do you think you called Kathy Burton
I could have,
and told her to show up on December 14th?
I could have, but I don't believe I called that.
Okay, and if you didn't, your subordinate Stu Sandler did.
No, Stu Foster.
I'm sorry, Stu, excuse me, Stu Foster.
He'd be very well put that.
Okay, did you instruct him to call the Republican?
I may have.
Okay. As part of your duties, responsibilities as an employee for the MRP, did you communicate with your co-employees via text?
Sometimes,
And did you text with Stu Foster?
on occasion, yeah.
Do you recall texting him on this issue?
No, I don't.
Okay. And would that be, again, part of your job responsibilities to communicate with your subordinates or your superiors via phone or text?
Yes,
And was the phone that you received or had at that time issued by the MRP?
no,
Okay, but it was part of your job responsibilities to communicate with your co-employees. All right. Let me ask you if you recognize this document. Yes, so this is Defense Exhibit D proposed. I'm handing the witness proposed Defense Exhibit D. Sir, does this appear to be text messages between you and Stu Foster?
yes,
And is the date range of this document December 11, 2020 through December 15, 2020?
Hard to tell, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The my printout is not the best. And are these indeed text messages from you to Stu Foster and his responses?
I believe so.
And would the blue be what you're saying?
No,
I'm sorry, would the blue be what Stu Foster is saying in the text?
I believe so.
And the gray are what your text message is back on?
It looks like it.
Okay. And again, this exchange is pursuant to your employment with the Michigan Republican Party as political director at that time, yes?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Defendant's Exhibit D.
Any objections to the defendant's D?
No objection.
Defendant's D is admitted.
Your Honor, I will hand one up in a moment. I just don't have an extra copy, so, but I'll get it to you, I promise.
How many copies do you have? Do you have a copy from the follow as you?
Witness has a copy.
Okay. Okay. This is your copy. This is his copy.
Mr. Stavlin,
This
yes.
is, okay.
So does this appear to be a back and forth exchange with you and Stu Foster about the lead up to December 14, 2020?
It looks like it.
Okay, and as you've reviewed this, did you have a moment to kind of go through it? And we'll go through some specifics,
Anyway, yeah,
but seems like you were involved in instructing him on who to contact, yes?
yeah,
And when I say who to contact, which Republican electors to contact in the lead up to December 14, 2020?
yeah. I mean, I specifically say don't call someone. I don't know that I'm directing him to the wrong one.
That's fair. So let's start with that. You say, don't call TLL. Who is TLL?
Terry Lynn Lane.
Okay, so you're instructing him not to call her, right?
Correct.
And you say in the next gray section, you say, I'll handle Terry Lynn Land and Vanderwood.
Correct.
Does that mean that you contacted those two individuals about this?
Well, he follows up with, I left the message with Kent, so I don't believe that I called Kent.
Okay, so, but again, and if you recall, do you think that based on this, you did call Terry Lynn Land?
I don't believe that I did.
All right. And then Stu Foster responds, I spoke with most everyone. Should I move to Michonne, Marion, and Stan? Do you see that? So this is at towards the bottom of page 1 of Defendant's Exhibit D. I'll read it again. This is Stu Foster speaking. Quote, I spoke with most everyone. Should I move to Michonne, Marianne, and Stan?
Yes, I see that.
Okay, so is a reasonable interpretation of that? He spoke to most all of the other 16 except Michonne Maddock, Marianne Sheridan, and Stan Grodd.
Yes.
Okay, and then your response is no.
Yes.
And then let's go to the next page because that's kind of cut off on this. So on the top of page 2, you say, okay, go ahead with those 3. So you kind of reverse yourself.
Right.
And so it's reasonable to assume that Stu Foster would have contacted those 3 individuals.
Yes.
And then you say, however, don't say, quote, sign a document, just say meet ahead of time.
Correct.
What did you mean by that?
I don't recall.
Did you know leading up to the, you testified already, leading up to December 14, 2020, you knew that there was a document prepared, and I'll hand it to you again. I think when you may have it.
I
Exhibit 8.
Yeah,
People's Exhibit 8. Here, I've got a copy of it. This is the document you knew was going to be signed on December 14, 2020, right?
Yes.
And you knew that from your conversation with Laura Cox and Stu Sandler?
Yes.
And are you aware that Stu Sandler prepared this document?
I'm not certain of that. No.
Who do you believe prepared that document?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it, well, okay, that's fine. Okay, but you knew that was the document. And how did you get that document?
I don't remember.
Was it emailed to you?
It could have been.
By Stu Sandler?
Yeah, again, it could have been. I don't know.
All right. And then just going back to Defense Exhibit D, he says, Stu Foster says, K, done. So I assume that means he contacted those 3 individuals, right?
We were working on a lot of things. I don't know. It could be something else.
Okay, he may have texted you something outside of context?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, but then the next one says, except for Kent and Terry Lynn Land, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay, then at the bottom of page 2, it says, Haggard was asked to come down tonight for a 6 a.m. meeting tomorrow morning at the Radisson. See that?
I do.
So is your understanding that because he had to be there early, John Haggard came the night before, or at least he was asked to?
I don't know.
Had you ever heard anything about some going into the Capitol building the night before?
Yes.
And was that something that Laura Cox said?
No.
Where'd you hear that?
Rumor mill. I mean, it was something people were talking about.
Before or after the fact?
I heard rumors of it before.
Okay. But you don't know from whom?
No.
And that's pretty nonsensical, right?
I mean, it didn't happen.
Right. And nor could it, right?
I don't know.
And then just finishing out the text, defense exhibit D, you said, Stu Foster says, by the way, I never called Michonne, FYI. And then you say, she called me, right?
Yes.
And then you say to Stu Foster, don't come tomorrow.
Correct.
Right. So does that mean, why did you tell him not to come on December 14, 2020?
I believe he went to go help out with a recall election that we had.
Okay, so don't come to the meeting at the
Correct.
headquarters building.
Yeah.
Because you were gonna be there.
Correct.
And you had it covered. Okay, you talked about the other folks that were there. At least for the MRP side, right?
Yes.
And you gave us one person from the Trump campaign, and that was Sean Flynn.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and you still have People's Exhibit 8 there, right?
Yeah. This one, yes.
I'm also going to give you Defense Exhibit B, which is the signed document.
Yep.
Okay, so you told us that the intent of the meeting, as you understood it, was to recognize this group of Republican electors who had been elected at the state convention, right?
Correct.
All right, and then also to sign and notarize this document, fair?
Yes.
So People's Exhibit 8 is the unsigned version and Defense Exhibit B is the signed version, right?
Correct.
Okay. Were you, so the meeting that, I guess we'll call it the MRP sanctioned meeting in the basement of the building, who was in charge of that meeting? Were you in charge of that meeting?
I was there. Again, our executive director was also there.
And remind me who that was.
Mike Ambrosini.
Okay. Was he in the room though? Was he in the
I don't
conference room?
believe so.
Okay. So Laura Cox called the meeting
Yes.
and you were one, there's a person, the chief of staff in between you, but you're the one that's in and out of the room at that time. And so you're directing traffic, if you will. Is that fair?
Oh, sure.
Okay. And you had this document.
Point of this.
Or People's Exhibit 8.
Correct.
See what?
And did you tell me what you did with Defense Exhibit or People's Exhibit 8?
I don't know.
Did you give it to
Something.
give it to Kathy Bird?
I may have. Don't.
Did you read it to her?
I don't think so.
Did she read it in your presence?
No, not to my knowledge.
Did she sign it in your presence?
No.
Did Henry Toe notarize Ms. Burden's signature?
That's what it appears to be.
Did Ms. Toe notarize that document in your presence?
No.
Okay, but you said you're looking at Defense Exhibit B and you see that was notarized by Henry Toe.
Yes.
And it was notarized on what date? So was that document signed in the basement of?
I believe so.
Just going to throw a couple of names at you to see if they were any of the Trump campaign or RNC folks there. Chris Velasco,
I've learned that he was not.
Mark Foster.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, and then you said basically due to COVID concerns, a rule was established that only limited staff would be there and the Republican electors themselves, right?
Correct.
And who do you think came up with that? Who established that rule?
I don't remember,
Would it have been either Ambrosini or Laura Cox?
probably.
And then you mentioned Ms. Burden's husband was allowed in, right? And that was your decision?
Yes,
And remind us, you allowed him to go upstairs into your office and rest?
correct.
Was Ms. Burden tending to her husband throughout the time she was there? Do you know?
I don't know.
Obviously, she was concerned about him given his condition at the time, right?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevant speculation.
I think that does cause some speculation, don't you think?
I'll withdraw it
Counsel?
here.
Thank you. Objection sustained.
Okay, and you talked about how it was a distinct honor to be selected from the individual congressional districts to represent the state of Michigan as an elector here, or Republican elector, right?
Correct.
And you've had other similar celebrations and honoring of individuals in the past. And I can't remember if you testified to some examples on direct or earlier cross, but can you give us at least one example?
I mean, anyone who ran for state rep, even if they ran and lost, or state senate, we would generally have something for them. People who were state committee members, even we would have something if you ran for national committee and lost, you try to get everybody together again.
Now, I think at least in prior testimony, some issues have been made about the lower level or the basement being used. Any issues about using the lower level here, or why was the lower level used? For this meeting?
It was one of the larger rooms downstairs. I mean, I don't know, but that's my guess.
Okay. And you're gonna have outside distractions if you're down there? Sure.
No.
And then what about this cell phone collection? I think something's been made about cell phones not being permitted in the meeting.
Yeah.
What was your position on that?
What do you mean what my position was?
Well, did you think it was a big deal about people having to turn in their cell phones?
Not particularly.
And did you tell that to Agent Shock when he interviewed you?
I believe so.
But you had no problem with that and you didn't think anything nefarious about collecting cell phones, right?
Correct.
Okay, now we talked a little bit about two folks who were not on the original list. And the fact that Terry Lynn Land and Gerald Wall didn't come on that day, right?
Correct.
And there was some effort to find replacement electors for them,
Yes.
but that wasn't something you were doing, right?
No.
And that wasn't important to you.
Correct.
And you don't, as you sit here today, you don't remember calling Kathy Burden, so it's likely that Stu Foster called her about showing up on December 14th?
It's possible.
But you don't recall doing that?
No, I do not.
And then I think Ms. Logan asked you when those two individuals showed up, you let them in. Somehow you must have known who they were. Somebody must have told you, you just don't remember.
Correct.
Now, the meeting down in the basement, when did that start? Do you remember?
Sometime in the morning.
Okay. And do you remember anything about selection of Ms. Burden as the chairperson?
No, I do not.
You don't, were you there when that happened?
I don't believe so.
Was that something that was preordained from your perspective?
Not that I remember.
So she was named chair at the beginning of that meeting? You weren't, you don't remember?
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's fair. And you said you were in and out of the meeting, right?
Correct.
So how long in total did the meeting last?
I don't know.
Do you remember telling Agent Shock when he interviewed you that it was about 20 minutes.
I could have, yeah,
Does that sound about right to you?
probably.
And in terms of how those two other individuals, their names are Jim Renner and Mr. Thompson, how they became replacement electors, you don't recall how that happened? Or were you in the room when that happened?
I believe that Marion Sheridan and Michonne Maddock were calling them, but I don't remember that specifically.
And so again, with respect to People's Exhibit 8, this document that Kathy Burden signed, and we see that from Defense Exhibit B, you gave it to her, but you don't recall exactly the mechanics of that.
Correct. I don't know if I gave it to her, but
who else would have given it to her, if not you?
One of the other people that were there.
From MRP?
Yeah.
And sir, you see how on that document, Ms. Burden signed the document on the same page as the text of the document?
Correct.
To your knowledge, did Ms. Burden know that she was signing this document, People's Exhibit 8 and Defense Exhibit B, prior to the day?
I don't remember if it was sent in or not.
And did you say that the document, the purpose of the meeting from your perspective, as informed by Laura Cox and Stu Sandler and whomever else, was essentially to sign a document so that we're covered if any of the lawsuits are resolved in President Trump's favor?
One of the purposes, yeah.
And so whatever was done on that day, from your perspective, was contingent on some future event occurring.
Well, again, one of the purposes, but
right.
Also, yeah,
ceremonial,
yeah,
and honoring.
Right.
But for the document itself,
yes,
is for it's a contingent document for some future event happening.
Yes.
Do you know why this document, People's Exhibit 8 and Defense Exhibit B, was set up to be notarized?
I do.
To your knowledge, are notarized documents more important than documents that are not notarized?
Generally, yeah.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Okay, now, you testified that when the meeting was concluded in the basement, what was your testimony, that it went upstairs?
Correct.
At whose direction?
I don't recall.
At your direction?
No.
At anybody else from the MRP's direction?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Was that at Sean Flynn's direction?
That's what I recall, yes.
Do you remember what he said?
Well, we gotta clarify, because you said you don't know twice and now it's John Flynn.
Well, I mean, if you say the Trump campaign, yes.
Okay.
So do you know? The
No,
first question was,
no,
why they go upstairs? You said you don't know. He said, was it at your direction? You said, no. You said, was it at anybody from MRPs? You said, I don't know. Then when he asked, was it Sean Flynn? You said, I believe so.
Correct.
So you did know the first time he asked?
No, I believe
Why they went
that
upstairs?
that it was the Trump campaign and Sean Flynn, but I don't.
Okay, and let's go ahead and, because it's a fair point, let's clarify it. So you certainly didn't
No.
call the electors upstairs.
Correct.
And it is your belief that nobody from the MRP asked them to go upstairs.
Correct.
Because that would have been contrary to Laura Cox's instructions.
Correct.
And you said that there were Trump campaign people there that day, right?
Correct.
And I think your testimony was there were about 5 of them.
Correct.
The only one you can name is Sean Flynn.
Correct.
Somebody from the Trump campaign directed these folks to go upstairs.
Correct.
And so because you only know Sean Flynn, you're assuming it was him.
Okay, how do you know that someone from the Trump campaign directed them upstairs?
I know that none of the MRP.
No, I asked you a question.
Yeah.
Answered my question.
I do not know.
Thank you.
Okay. And you thought that was what, strange? What was your testimony?
It wasn't what we were there to do.
Okay. And so because that wasn't what you were there to do, you picked up the phone and called either Stu Sandler or Laura Cox.
Correct.
Would you now remember who it was?
I don't remember. What it was.
One of them told you that's not what you're there to do, so you can leave, essentially.
Correct.
And you did.
Yes.
And did you tell Kathy Burden that she's done and she can go home?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't remember.
Well, do you remember or you just didn't do that?
No, I don't remember. I had that conversation with her.
All right. Let's see if you can remember anything about going upstairs. What did you see as they were walking upstairs? Did you see anything interesting about how they were going upstairs?
No.
Were they walking up in pairs, 2 by 2?
Don't remember.
Okay. Did you see anything other than Defense Exhibit B signed in the basement of the Republican headquarters on December 14, 2020?
I did not.
I want to be clear on that. Just handing the witness Defense Exhibit C. Have you ever seen that single page document?
I've seen it since
Subsequent.
then. Yes.
Okay, you didn't see that on December 14, 2020.
Correct.
So to your knowledge, that was not signed in the basement of the Republican headquarters.
Not to my knowledge.
14 here.
Oh. I just, again, want to be clear with the witness. On December 14, 2020, did you see page 2 of People's Exhibit 14 in the headquarters building?
No.
I don't belong here.
So whatever was said upstairs, you don't know because you didn't go.
Correct.
No, I need this. Don't blame me.
Did you, when you were interviewed prior to your testimony today by the state, do you recall telling Agent Schock that you felt like the Trump campaign folks were, quote, deviating from the plan?
I don't know if I said that.
Okay. Do you think the Trump campaign folks were deviating from the MRP plan?
Yes.
Can you describe that a bit more?
Well, in the sense that there was another meeting happening that I didn't know anything about.
And that was not sanctioned by your boss?
Correct.
And that Kathy Burden had no knowledge of prior to December 14th?
I don't know.
Well, she was informed about the meeting by either you, although you said you didn't, or your subordinates to Foster, right?
For the meeting at the party itself in the basement? Yes. Yeah.
So her knowledge of what was going on December 14, 2020 was limited to what Stu Foster told her.
I don't know. I don't know what other conversations anybody else had.
if Stu Foster was the person who advised her to show up on December 14, 2020.
Yeah.
Do you believe that to be true?
Probably.
Okay. And he, Stu Foster, was informed about the purpose of the meeting by you, correct?
Yeah, probably.
And you were informed about the meeting by Laura Cox and Stu Sandler, correct?
Yes.
Then Ms. Burden's knowledge is only what Laura Cox knew, what you knew, and what Stu Foster knew.
And I'm gonna object to speculation.
He's already answered the question. He said he doesn't know because he doesn't know what other conversation she had. So
That's fair,
you
but
re-questioning him and breaking it down is not going to change the fact that she may have had other questions. So her knowledge may not be limited, is what he's saying.
I understand, but
So
at least-
objection is sustained. Move on.
All right.
Why don't you go somewhere?
You recall when you were interviewed, Agent Shock asking you if you felt like Kathy Burden got blindsided by the Trump campaign, and your response was, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Do you think that today?
Objection relevance.
The question was whether or not he believed Ms. Burden was blindsided by.
The Trump campaign.
Overruled. Answer the question.
I don't know.
You knew it then, but you don't know it now?
I don't know.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we take a break, because we've been sitting for longer than an hour. How many others do we need to cross-examine this witness?
2.
1, 2. Okay, 5-minute break. Do you need water, sir?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah? Okay. Let's go.
Okay, back on the record, and you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. Hudson, this is not the first time that you've told anyone about what happened on December 14th, 2020 at the MRP office, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, you were interviewed by someone from the Attorney General's office by the name of Investigator Schock.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And do you recall that the date of that interview would have been March 1st of 2023?
I don't, but.
Does that sound about right?
Sure.
Okay. So in March 1st of 2023, when you were speaking to that investigator, you were telling him the truth, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't want to lie to him, right?
Correct.
You were trying your best to remember what happened that day, right?
Correct.
And it's fair to say that that date, March 2023, is closer in time than today is to the actual event we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Now, there have been a lot of lawyers that have been asking you questions about what happened in downstairs, and then apparently there's another meeting that happened upstairs. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, this meeting that happened upstairs that you talked about was it was after the meeting that you had been present for in and out in the lower level was concluded, and then the electors went upstairs. Is that right?
Correct.
And Mr. Schock was asking you questions about that, how they went, the people went from downstairs to upstairs, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you indicated earlier too on your answering questions today that there are other members of the Trump team that were there, correct?
Correct.
Sean Flynn is one of those Trump team members, right?
Correct.
And he was downstairs during the meeting that was going on downstairs. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, there was a time when that meeting was concluded, correct?
Correct.
Right. You say you don't know today. When Mr. Schock had asked you questions about that, you told him, did you not? After the meeting concluded in the basement, Sean Flynn, Chris Velasco, and Drew Thompson said, "We are not done. Come up to the conference room." Did you tell him that?
I could have. I don't remember exactly what I said.
Okay. Has anyone let you read your statement to him
No.
that you gave to the agent?
No.
Has anyone explained to you that your interview with the agent was recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. And has anyone let you listen to that recording?
No.
Who's Chris Velasco?
He was the state director for the Trump campaign in Michigan.
Okay. And who is Drew Thompson?
I don't remember what his title was, but he was essentially the deputy state director.
Okay. And is it your testimony today that if you had said that these three individuals said to the group, "We are not done, come up to the conference room," if you told that to Agent Schock in March of 2023, it would have been true on that date, correct?
No, I've since learned that Chris Velasco was in Georgia that day.
Okay, so you,
I
but
was
you told the
mistaken.
agent that Chris Velasco was there that day.
So I was mistaken.
Okay. Sean Flynn and Drew Thompson were there.
I believe so. Yeah.
All right.
I know Sean Flynn was there. I believe Drew Thompson was there.
Okay. And let's just clarify then, if you told the agent that Sean Flynn and Drew Thompson said, "We're not done, come up to the conference room," that was true at the time you told him, leaving Mr. Velasco out there.
Yes.
Okay. You had directed Stuart Foster to contact the electors to ask them to appear on the 14th, right?
I don't recall.
Okay. And it was Laura Cox that had asked you to contact the electors to have them appear on the 14th?
Yes.
Okay. You say that you did not contact any of those electors.
Not that I recall.
Okay. Your understanding based upon, or in order to contact those electors, your understanding was that they were being told they're coming there to be honored for their service.
Correct.
Okay. When you were interviewed by Agent Stock, you said that, did you not, that there was pending litigation going on with the Trump campaign in the state of Michigan on December 14th?
Correct.
Okay. And the, other than celebrating their service of the electors, the other reason for their meeting was to demonstrate that they were at the Capitol on December 14th, or in Lansing on December 14th, prepared, if needed be, to attest to the fact that they were there to vote for Donald Trump and Mike Pence.
Correct.
Okay. Did you hear anything that either Sean Flynn or Drew Thompson, other than the quote that I just talked about, did you hear them say anything else to the electors during the meeting?
I don't remember.
Okay. Nothing further.
Most of my questions have been asked. Something just got covered. Whose idea was it to be a celebration?
I don't remember where the idea originated, but Laura Cox is the one who invited everyone. to the
Okay.
chairman party.
So the only origin you can point to is that you heard about it from Laura Cox.
Yeah.
And you testified that a couple of the electors were not going to show, right?
Correct.
When did you find that out?
A day or so before. I
Okay.
didn't know that Jerry Wall was sick,
Okay.
but I knew that Jerry wasn't coming.
And did you find out that two other people were going to be called in their place?
I didn't know that, no.
Okay, but did you learn that later?
When they showed up, yes.
Okay. And you said that you didn't make the call. You presume Stu Foster did, correct?
I could have been.
And you have no idea who told him to do that.
It could have been me. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember asking Stu Foster to call that.
Would there have been anyone else in a position of authority to ask him?
Yeah,
Would that be?
Mike Ambrosini.
At the time of the meeting, were you aware, because you've referenced several times that there were 16 electors there at the meeting? Or I think you agreed to it when it was posited by a question that there were 16 electors. But most accurately, there were 14 electors and two other persons, correct?
Correct.
So you would concede that a couple of the people were not elected.
Correct.
Okay. You had instructions that other than, I think there was a one party spouse, there was certain select staffers, and there were certain up to 3 to 5 Trump campaign members, correct?
Correct.
And yourself.
Yep.
But other than that, it was to be the 16 electors.
Correct.
Why, if 2 of them aren't electors, were they allowed in?
I don't remember.
You just don't know.
I don't remember why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any door authority letting people in and out? Meaning someone right at the door saying, you stay out, you can come in.
Not a single person, no.
Okay. How did the message get dissembled to the staff members as to who they were to keep in and keep out?
I don't remember.
I represent Michelle Lundgren, and this has already been asked by Council Chartier. You have no idea what anyone was told to anything that they signed that day.
No, I do not.
Which appear to be possibly 2 documents, correct?
Correct.
And what induced them, you know nothing about, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Whatever might have induced them or whatever they might have been told, have no personal knowledge of, correct?
Correct.
Did you have some official functions in the building that day?
Other than that, I worked there.
Okay, you worked there, right? Okay, okay. All Everyone that worked in the building was allowed in?
Again, no, not at the time. Most of us were all working from home during this period.
Okay.
There was a COVID.
Was there a particular reason you didn't work from home and were there in the building?
I was asked to be.
By who?
Laura Cox.
Okay. Okay. Like I said, most of the questions have been answered. Thank you.
I just have some clarifying questions. I thought you previously testified that you were instructed not to allow anyone else in the building.
We weren't allowed to have, it was to be the electors, correct? Yeah.
Who's we?
The Michigan Republican Party.
Okay, that wasn't an instruction given directly to you?
I don't remember.
Okay, and you though did make a decision to let additional people such as Ms. Bearden's husband in?
I made that decision.
Made the decision. How did you come about to know that he was there?
He arrived.
And you were at the door?
At that time, I would have been. Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least, or someone came and got me.
Okay, and so you, just to get back to Mr. Silverthorne's questions, you were aware that there were 2 additional individuals arriving or being called to arrive?
At some point, yes.
Okay, and did you communicate to anybody that they weren't allowed to come in?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Any other cross-examination? Can you redirect?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Were you present during the basement meeting when a document was signed?
I don't believe so.
And in the first floor conference room, were you present for anything that happened in there?
No.
So is it fair to say that Defense Exhibit B, you don't know when or where that was signed?
Correct.
And the document that you later,
I'm gonna object to the when part. He testified it was signed on December 14, 2020, because the notary attested that it was signed on December 14.
Okay.
that's what the
To
document says.
the extent that she means when the date, that's fine. I'm assuming you mean the time or location? What do you mean?
Well, he doesn't know when it was signed. I mean, it's notarized and the notarization speaks for itself, but his personal knowledge of when or where.
He
it was
didn't
signed-
witness it being signed.
Exactly.
That's your question?
That is my question.
Okay. To the extent that your objection would clarify that, I'll grant your objection. Any other questions?
Yes. The document, Exhibit 14, which was shown to you, it's right in front of you. I'm sorry. Right here. You did not witness that document being signed either. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, when the Republican electoral candidates were instructed to go upstairs, did any of the electors object? Or did you hear any objections?
I don't know.
Did anyone appear to be forced to go upstairs?
No.
And the document that you referenced that you observed, People's Exhibit 8, the unsigned document. I think you still have it, yes. How many spots are there for a signature?
One signature and one notary.
Okay, so you would not expect for 16 electors to sign that document, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and there's actually a name under that signature line, is that correct?
Correct.
And whose name is that?
Kathy Burden.
Now, as it related to, we'll call them the replacements for the purposes of this question. Did you make any efforts to find replacements for Ms. Land or Mr. Wall?
I did not.
Do you know who did?
I remember Michonne and Marion on the phone talking about replacements, but I don't know if that's where.
And do you recall that being a part of the conversation you had with Investigator Shock in March of 2023?
I could have.
Permission to approach to refresh. Sir, I'm going to hand you the second page of a document, and I just want you to look at the highlighted sentence. Just read it to yourself. Don't read it out loud. Let me know when you're done.
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory as to the conversation that you had with Investigator Shock on March 1st, 2023?
Yes,
And does that refresh your memory as to what information you provided about who was attempting to fill the vacancies?
I said that Michonne, Maddock, and Marion Karen were making calls.
Now, sitting here today, do you recall if anyone led the meeting in the basement?
No,
Do you recall if that was a subject of conversation between you and Investigator Shock on March 1st, 2023?
it could have been. I don't remember.
Permission to approach?
Yes.
I'm gonna hand you page 3. I'm gonna ask you to look at this highlighted sentence. It is the third paragraph down from the top. Just read it to yourself. Let me know. Does that refresh your memory?
Sort of, yeah.
And does that sentence involve information you provided about who led the meeting?
I think it's more in reference to the document as to who chaired the meeting.
Well, it says Kathy Bearden led the meeting, right?
That's what, yes, that's the statement there. But again, I think that's more in reference to who chaired the meeting. So my wording there, it may not have been.
You've answered my question, sir. Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, I just need to clarify something, because I still have your copy of proposed D, but you have the defense exhibit D still?
Text messages.
Text messages, does he have that?
No, I don't believe, yes, I do.
Okay, I need you to look at that document because I just need some clarification. These were text messages between you and Troy Hudson.
I am sure.
Oh, I mean, you and you and whom? Sorry.
Stu Foster.
Stu Foster. And then this was not about there being a celebration though, correct?
It appears some of it is.
Okay, so when, remind me who's in the blue? That's you?
That is not me.
That's not you. You're receiving those and you're in the gray or the lighter color?
Correct.
Okay, so you received the text message on December 11th, according to this, correct?
The printout's rough. I can't tell. It looks like it.
Can you publish this image so I can see? Because mine is pretty clear. I want to see why it says it's so rough.
Yeah, it's because it's from a different source, but yes, permission to publish the exhibit that is.
Thank you. Maybe we could switch. If you can, you give them this one, I'll look at that one, because that one's rough, I guess.
It looks like the 11th, 12th, and 13th, Judge.
This is much better. You can keep that.
Thank you. Okay, so the first date on that was a text message that you received December 11th, 2020?
Correct.
Okay, and you responded, it looks like December 12th, 2020.
Yes.
You said, yes, don't call TLL, which you stated was Terry Lynn Land.
Correct.
Okay, and that was about calling her to invite her to the celebration?
Yeah, that's what I assume.
Oh, okay, and then you said that you'll handle Terry Lynn Land in Vanderwood, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you received a response that same day about Michonne, Marion, and Stan. But on the next page, and I'm assuming that's the same day because I don't see a new date until we go down. So I'm assuming this is still December 12th. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, it says, okay, go ahead with those three. Are you still talking about Michonne, Marion, and Stan?
Probably.
Probably, it's yes or no, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. So then you don't know why you would say don't say sign a document?
Correct. I don't remember.
Okay, so it's your testimony that you didn't send any text messages about signing a document, or that?
Oh, I don't believe so.
Okay, and you believe these text messages was not about signing a document, it was about a celebration? You believe that these text messages or this engagement that we're going over was about you all making calls about a celebration?
Correct.
Okay, and not about them coming down for a meeting beforehand?
No, not beforehand, no.
Okay, so the gray, which was you, it says just say meet ahead of time. You don't know why you would say that?
Nope, I don't.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
I have some, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start on this text, just to clarify that. So before I go to the language, the meeting from your perspective, okay, informed by Laura Cox and Stu Sandler, was dual purpose, fair?
Yes,
To honor these 16 individuals
yes,
and to sign People's Exhibit 8,
B,
Defense Exhibit B, the
okay,
signed
yes,
version.
yes.
Yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so back to the judge's questions. When you say to Stu Foster, don't say sign a document, just say meet ahead of time. You don't know, you can't recall as you sit here today why you said that. Were you saying don't tell them that they're gonna sign Defense Exhibit B?
I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. All right. Okay, now. Ms. Logan asked you about who was leading the meeting down in the basement, right?
Yes,
And back in March of 1st, 2023, you said it was Kathy Burton.
correct,
And that's because she was the one who was going to sign Defense Exhibit B.
correct.
And so what was signed in the basement that Ms. Burton led, if she led it, was the signing of Defense Exhibit B.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to assuming facts not in evidence because he doesn't know where that was signed.
He's already testified that he didn't know.
Is that fair?
The objections is saying he doesn't have to answer that. He's already testified he didn't know when that was signed.
Okay, may I ask it again, just to make sure we're clear?
And then there's gonna be an objection of ask and answer. He's already answered that. And this is beyond the scope. You've already had your cross. You were
Well-
supposed to ask questions relevant to my
Okay.
questions.
Okay. What about the state's questions about going upstairs? Can I ask some questions about that?
About the state's question on redirect?
Yeah.
So about going upstairs, so then I have to let them redirect after you recross, correct? Then I gotta let everybody else recross, is what you're
All right.
saying?
All right,
At 12 minutes to 3.
all right. I mean, well. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions based on my questions?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. May this witness be excused.
Yes.
Here's a sequestration order. You're not to discuss any portions of your testimony with any other witness. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Are we calling any additional witnesses today?
I have one more witness. Wow, you in.
Is Glenn okay?
I think my witness had to move his car.
Ms. Lundgren, are you okay? Okay, I can't hear you, but you can nod your head if it's yes. Thank you. You say your witness going to move his car?
Yeah, I think he was having an issue with the parking lot.
Okay, back on the record, you call your witness.
And at this time, the people will call Mr. Stuart Foster.
Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give us the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury.
Yes,
Okay, you can have a seat there.
thank you.
Okay, state your first and last name and then spell both.
Yep, Stuart Foster,
Spell both.
STUARTFOSTER.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
In 2020, where did you work, sir?
I worked for the Michigan Republican Party.
And how long did you work for the Michigan Republican Party?
At 2020, I hired on in 2011, so not 9 years.
And in 2020, what was your role with the Michigan Republican
I
Party?
my official title was the member relations director.
What did you do as the member relations director?
A multitude of things, but my main job was to assist with our state committee, our governing body, our county chairs. That was my main grassroots activist. That was my main job, but it involved myriad of other things as well.
Now, in December of 2020, did you have any role in trying to arrange for the Republican slate of electors to appear at Michigan Republican headquarters?
So, do I really remember what happened 4 years ago? Probably not as much, but I did, looking at old texts, that I did call people to attend some sort of meeting.
Okay. Now, granted that this was about well over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you recall when you became involved with the planning of the meeting or arranging for attendance?
I honestly do not recall I don't believe I had anything to do with the arranging of the meeting. I do, again, looking at old texts, that I did call people about this meeting.
Okay. And is that the best recollection that you have looking at old texts that are reminding you about the timelines?
Yes.
Permission to approach?
Yes.
This is, I think, the fence mark D. I'm just going to show you this and have you look that over. And does that give you an idea of when you were involved in I guess, arranging the meeting?
Yeah. So like, again, I guess it depends on what you mean by arrangement of meeting. Like, I was involved in calling people to attend the meeting. I don't know. Again, I'm not remembering, or I'm not recalling, and I don't believe I had anything to do with the actual setting up the meeting itself, or asking for a meeting to occur. But I did call people to attend the meeting.
Did you know why the meeting was going to take place?
So, again, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be difficult at all, but looking back on it, like hindsight, I think I did. If I look back at my text, then I must have known of what was occurring. But during the time, I just don't remember.
Now, you said looking at Defense Exhibit D, that refreshes your recollection as to what role you had in contacting people. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, you have to say yes or no.
Excuse me, objection, only because just based on his last statement, I'm a little unclear whether looking at the text messages refreshes his memory and then he says, oh, this is what I did, or he's just basing it off the text messages and says, well, the text messages say these things, so this is what I must have done. And I think there's a big distinction from that, and based on what he said last, I have concerns about, he's just looking at text messages and saying, well, I must have done this because it's in text messages.
I'm positive that was Mr. Silverthorne's concern, because I saw him make a face as he stated that, because your statements or his statements and response to your question is that looking at the text message, he must have known what was going on, but he doesn't remember at the time.
I know, I'm trying to see if I can circle back to that.
Okay, so as to your objection, it's sustained. Thank you.
Now. Do you remember contacting anyone to come to a meeting in December at Michigan Republican headquarters?
I do remember contacting.
Do you remember who you contacted?
No, again, going back to the text, but I don't remember at this specific time of who I called.
Now, with looking at the text messages, refresh your memory as to who you contacted.
So it's easier to state who I didn't talk to. Is that, like, I don't even remember the lectors, quite frankly.
I know, but that's
So-
not my
so-
question. My question is, if with looking at the text messages, refresh your memory as to who you did contact.
I mean,
That's a yes or no question.
was that
That's a yes or no question.
without looking at the, with looking at the text? No.
They would not refresh your memory looking at the text messages, but you remember who you did not contact.
Yes.
Who did?
Or I'm looking at the text. Looking at the text, I remember who I did not contact.
What is like a process of elimination?
No. Am I allowed to speak? So basically the text basically say that you need me to call these people, and I was told no, and so I didn't call them.
Okay, so you're saying you can look at the text and see who you was told not to call. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, but that doesn't mean just because their name wasn't there that you didn't speak to those people.
That is true.
Okay, so then you don't remember who you called and you don't remember who you didn't call unless you saw the list of who you were told not to call. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna ask you to look at the text messages and let me know when you're done.
Mhm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, does that refresh your memory as to who you did not contact?
Yes,
And who did you not contact?
I did not speak with Kent Vanderwood. I did not speak with Terry Land. And I did not speak with Michonne. Matt.
And it's fair to say that doesn't mean you spoke with the other 13 electors, correct?
Correct, correct.
And you don't have an independent recollection of who you actually did speak with.
No.
So, can we just, I am sorry to do this, but could we just have 2 minutes? Because I want to make sure that the exhibits matching up, because it looks like there's a page that might be confused from what.
Yeah, this definitely doesn't look like what I saw in his. So this is blurry. Let's see.
I just want to make sure. 'cause
What
I
does
think
he
there's a
have in his
page-
hand? Because this is one that's
3
marked
pages, right?
Yeah.
defendant's exhibit.
I just gave him this one because it was easier to read.
Yeah, it's much clearer. Okay.
So you only get 2.
Reason. why-
Yeah, no, but yours had double was,
This is.
Oh, you're right.
Oh.
This is different. What you doing?
Oh,
This.
sorry, yes.
So I got confused.
Yeah, no, that's not out.
This is the same?
Yeah, those are the same.
Okay, okay, that helps me. So,
No, you-
okay, but don't give that.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, because yours is in the report.
No. Do you remember?
I'm gonna do this. You have a bad copy, right, Judge?
It is blurry.
All right, I got a better
that's
one for you. I'll struggle with my
marked.
eyes. You get the better one.
Well, we probably should mark
It's the
yours if
same.
it's better, because that one's pretty bad.
Yeah, I will do that.
This was Defense Exhibit D.
Thank you.
When you contacted the electoral candidates that you did contact, do you remember what you told them?
Only via my text.
Do you remember why you were contacting them?
Again, referring to my text, but it was not out of the common way to just have my boss tell me to call random people at any given point in time of the day or even night, so.
No worries. I have a clarifying question anyways, because you said based on your text message, you did not speak to Michonne?
Yeah, I think there's one text from my recollection that I was told that I did not talk to Michonne and that my boss said he had already talked to her.
Okay, on these text messages, are you the blue or you are the gray?
I'm the blue.
Okay, and so if one of these text messages said, Michonne had some questions for me, would that mean that you spoke to her, or how would you?
I don't, again, I'm not remembering the actual recollection of all the conversations over the course of a couple of weeks. But I do have a conversation. I do have a text thread in there basically saying, I did not call, I did not talk to Michonne.
Okay.
And he said, don't worry about it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Did you attend the meeting on December 14th,
I did not.
2020? You have to wait until I answer the question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, only one person can talk at a time. So we're gonna try to skip. Did you attend the meeting on December 14th, 2020?
I did not.
Dr. Frederick.
Thank you. Mr. Foster, my name is Mary Chartier. I only have a few questions for you this afternoon. And I just want to clarify. So we're talking about something that happened over 3 years ago. You have to say yes or no. You would agree with me? Yes. And it sounds like your job entailed speaking with a lot of members of the party or the public. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So as you sit here today, I'm not asking about something that you read. Your memory is you don't remember what electors you spoke to about this December meeting, correct?
Correct.
You don't remember what you would have told any electors about the purpose of the meeting, correct?
Not based on what I read?
Correct.
Correct.
And then you don't even remember, for example, if anyone had questions or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, you weren't at the meeting, so you don't know what anyone was told at the meeting, right?
Correct.
Nothing else. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Good afternoon, sir. My name is George Danini. I represent Kathy Burton.
Sir.
Same here. Okay, let's start with this text. See if we can dig in a little bit. So this is Defense Exhibit B or D, excuse me. Do you see that document in front of you? Do you have it still?
I
Do you take it from
D?
D?
I think someone gave him a copy. This is the one that we remarked.
Just let somebody know. 32 people.
No.
I use this now. Let me ask a few questions leading up. So when did you first become aware of a meeting on December 14, 2020 of the 16 Republican electors?
No,
No idea.
no.
Did you hear it from your boss, Troy Hudson?
In the. Yes, I mean, that's typically, I would typically hear the marching orders from my immediate boss at that time would be Troy Hudson. I'm assuming there, but yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the significance of that date?
Of the 20th?
December 14th.
December 14th. I believe that was the date that the electors had to cast their vote for ultimately president of the United States.
Okay. And so you learned something about it from Troy Hudson, but you don't remember when or exactly what you learned, right?
Yes.
And did you say, I can't remember, did you say that there was something about a ceremony or honoring these people, or did you not even have that knowledge?
No, so I knew that so I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk, but.
You're allowed to answer my question.
So like typically in the course of action that these presidential electors would have a ceremony of sorts to sign their or cast their votes for president of the United States. In that case, it would have been, the Republicans or the whoever won the nomination. So there would be a ceremony. Ceremony, that's for want of a better word, but.
Okay, so do you recall calling any one of the 16 electors to appear here in Lansing at the Michigan Republican headquarters on December 14, 2020? Do you have a memory of doing that? As you said,
not a memory from hindsight.
Okay, but you said when you looked at the text, you knew who you didn't call.
No, I must have called people.
Okay.
My text verified that I did call people.
Okay. All right, let me ask you this. Do you recall contacting Kathleen Bird? All right. So, and are you aware of Stu Sandler creating a document for Ms. Burden to sign on December 14, 2020? No.
Is that a yes or no?
No.
Troy Hudson didn't tell you about that?
I don't.
You don't recall?
I don't recall.
All right. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's take a look at this text. Okay. You're the blue, right? We've established that?
Yes.
And Troy Hudson is the gray.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's just walk through it. So he says, don't call TLL. Who is that?
Terry Lindline.
Okay, and you said, good catch. She is next. So you didn't call her, right?
No.
And he says, I'll handle TLL and Vanderwood. Okay, right?
Right.
And then you said, I left a message with Kent. Is that Kent Vanderwood?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you did at least call Kent Vanderwood.
Apparently. I never talked to him, I guess.
And then you say, I spoke with most everyone. Should I move to Michonne, Marion, and Stan? Does that in any way refresh your recollection as to whether you contacted Ms. Burden or any of the other 13 Republican electors?
No recollection.
All right. But certainly reading that text suggests you did.
Reading that text that I would have tried to or attempted to call Michonne, Marion, and Stan.
No, but before, I spoke with most everyone.
Yes.
Does that mean the 13 other people besides those three? It's your words, sir. It's your text. I'm trying to get you to give us a little insight into what you believe.
So if I'm reading the text,
that's right.
It looked like I attempted to call everybody.
Okay. I mean, it says I spoke with most everyone. Well,
apparently I didn't talk. I'm not sure if I talked to Kent. Maybe I did. Again, as I've stated, 3.5 years ago or whatever it was.
Okay, that's fair. I'm just trying to interpret the words on the page, which are your words.
So if I'm reading the words and if I'm interpreting the words correctly, that I spoke with most everyone. So probably 12 of the 13 or 11 of the 13 or whatever the case may be.
Okay, and when we say that, the 13 are the 16 electors minus Michonne Maddock, Marianne Sheridan, and Stan Gropp. Fair?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then then what Troy Hudson says, and I just want to see if you have any understanding of this. And context is he is asking you to call these electors to show up on December 14, 2020. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. And then he says, though, don't say, quote, sign a document. Just say meet ahead of time.
Right.
As you sit here today, do you know what Troy Hudson meant when he said, don't say sign a document?
I mean, looking at the text and looking back at this document, that they were supposed to sign some sort of document declaring their vote for President Trump.
And he's saying, don't say about
Yes.
signing a document.
Yes.
But you don't know which document he's talking about.
Not specifically. Again, back then I would have been making an assumption, or maybe I did know and I'm making an assumption now, but yeah.
Okay, so if he said, don't talk about signing a document, don't tell him anything about it, just say, hey, we need you here. Is that right?
Mhm.
So is that
Yes.
a yes?
Yes, yes.
So again, I know your recollection is not that great, but now in context, basically, Troy Hudson asked you to tell these folks, including Kathleen Burden, please show up on December 14, 2020, but no purpose as to why they were going.
Right. Yes.
All right. And then on page 3, I'm just curious where Troy Hudson says to you, don't come tomorrow. So I'm assuming that means don't come to the Michigan Republican headquarters on December 14, 2020 for this meeting. Is that a fair? It's fair?
Yes.
Do you know why he said don't come tomorrow?
Not a clue.
Okay. But and you testified earlier that you did not in fact come on that date.
Yep. Correct. Sorry.
What were you doing that day? If you recall.
I have no idea.
Fair enough. Okay. You're aware that the presidential election occurred on November 3rd, 2020. Yes. You're aware that the election was called for Joe Biden.
Yes.
Were you aware that there was legal action in the state of Michigan that was pending after that election? Challenging the election results?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Are you aware whether those legal cases or any actions were pending as of December 14, 2020, to your knowledge?
No.
Did you arrange for Carl Berry to be present for security purposes?
Aware of it.
My question was, did you set it up? Did you ask him to be there? Do you know who Carl Berry is?
Oh, yeah.
Did you call him and ask him to be there on that
I
day?
don't remember.
All right. Okay. So, do you know who Sean Flynn is?
Yes.
Who is Sean Flynn?
Sean Flynn was the election day operations legal person for the Trump campaign that was hired to assist in Michigan with them in the state of Michigan for that election cycle.
And did you know him prior to December 14, 2020?
Oh, yes.
When do you remember when you first met him?
Probably whenever we first hired on, probably earlier that year.
Okay, so you knew him for a few months leading up to the
yes.
presidential election?
Yes.
And did you interact with him at all in your job?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
What was your opinion of him?
I like him.
Mhm.
I mean, nice, pleasant.
And he's an attorney, yes?
Yes,
And he was an attorney for the Trump campaign.
yes.
And but
I mean, I
he,
don't know, I don't know if he was practicing law. I don't know, because he was working for the campaign and he was full challengers and all that stuff. But yes, I know he was an attorney.
okay, he was not an employee for the Michigan Republican Party.
No.
Okay, did you have?
But I should say, like, in terms of campaign finance, like, I don't know, I mean, I don't know how pay structure works and I don't know how that all works, but he was actually with the Trump campaign.
Right, so he's an employee of the Trump campaign.
Yes.
And you're an employee of the MRP.
Yes.
And did you speak with Sean Flynn or have contact with Sean Flynn on December 14, 2020?
I believe I did. Yes.
Do you remember what that contact was regarding?
Just how things going.
How things going?
How are things going?
All right. And about what?
About that meeting.
Okay. Give us a little context there. Why, how did you know Sean Flynn was in that meeting on December 14, 2020?
Because he was with the Trump campaign and they were trying to do this election integrity and electors, and that would have been in his wheelhouse.
Okay, so did Sean Flynn text you on December 14, 2020 after in the afternoon? Do you recall?
In the afternoon of the 14th?
Yes.
I don't know if it was on the 14th or it was the day after or 2 days after there, but yes.
Okay. Did he contact you either the day after or whenever, talking about how he was mailing some documents to Washington, D.C.?
Objection, hearsay.
The question was, did he talk to him about mailing some documents? Did he tell him that he was mailing him some documents? It's being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
I mean, well, at least the effect on the listener, but I mean.
Well, effect on the listener is different than it being offered for the truth of the matter. That's what I'm asking.
Sure, we're going to offer it for the effect on this witness to the extent that he recalls.
I'm not seeing how that statement would have any effect on this listener. I'm gonna still object.
I'm not sure either, but how it would have effect on me. I'm also just based on how things are going, even sure if this witness has an answer. So I'm going to overrule the objection and allow him to answer it.
Okay, do you know, I guess, let me ask you this. Well, do you know the question that I asked and do you have an answer?
Did Sean ask me about mail that was, I think the mail that was being sent?
Yeah.
Yes, he did something. He did text me.
Okay, so he told you he was mailing something. You don't know what?
No, I don't know what.
You have no idea what he was mailing, right?
I can speculate, but that's all.
Okay. Do you recall if, may I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
All right. Do you have any memory about Sean Flynn asking you to contact Ms. Burden to verify her address on a mailing label?
Only that text.
Okay, and is that what was being asked?
Correct.
So what was being asked of you? What did you, do you remember contacting Ms. Burden?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Were you being asked to confirm with her whether her address was correct?
Correct, yes.
But you had no idea what Sean Flynn was mailing to DC, right?
No.
And so if you had a conversation with Ms. Burden, then she had no idea what was being mailed.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't even hear the question clearly. Okay, so you're withdrawing the question?
I am, yes.
Okay.
The last one. And do you remember where he was contacting you from? Where Sean Flynn was contacting you from?
No.
You know if he was at the post office at the time he contacted you?
Your Honor, I believe the witness said he didn't know where he was contacting.
Ask and answer.
All right, hold on one second. Okay, nothing further.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. You were informed by your direct supervisor not to come on December 14th to the headquarters?
What's that now?
You were told or advised by your direct supervisor, Hudson, not to come to the headquarters on the 14th of December 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working in the headquarters in person during that time? You personally?
In the headquarters?
Yeah.
So I would come to Lansing a couple of days a week.
How many days a week would you come?
2, maybe 3.
Okay. Had you not been told to come, was that a day you would have came?
I don't remember at this time.
Oh.
I was looking for any excuse, not that I don't love Lansing, but
I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's kind of a far drive.
I get it. No worries. Any other cross-examination? Okay, redirect.
No, Your Honor.
I made this witness be excused.
Yes, please.
First, before you're excused, I need to advise you that there's a sequestration order, so you're not to discuss any portions of your testimony with any other witness, okay? Thank you. You can be excused.
Thank you.
Okay. And that was our last witness for today, correct?
It was.
It's about 3:24, which is a good time to break for the day on this. And then how many witnesses are we expecting tomorrow?
2.
2 witnesses. And who are those witnesses?
James Renner and Investigator Shaw.
Okay, James Renner and Investigator Shaw. We're scheduled for 8:30 tomorrow morning. If there was a motion that Mr. Kroger was going to argue in the morning as well.
Happy to, Your Honor, yes.
Okay, so we'll start with your motion and then proceed with testimony following that.
Thank you.
No problem. Any additional matters for today before we adjourn?
None of the people.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
No, thank you.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
I just want to confirm the court does have the motion.
I have your motion, I just don't have a judge's copy. So when I don't have a judge's copy, I just use a lot of sticky notes versus
I apologize.
marking it up.
I can get a judge's copy over to the court via email if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we will have Ms. Lundgren log in about 8:15 and my court staff and Mr. Silverthorne will troubleshoot her technology prior to us beginning tomorrow, okay? Any additional matters? No. Thank you. We're adjourned for today.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Ms. Lundgren. You're all set for today.